everybody, my name is Mike. I am Not For Coltrane. Welcome to Rockin' the Valley's Cyber Speakeasy, your source for music, conversations, and cocktails. I hope that you have something that is refreshing and wonderful and delicious, because speaking of refreshing and wonderful and delicious, we have some great guests. Let me introduce them in just a moment. I also need to say thanks for tuning in on Rockin' the Valley, and the Rockin' the Valley Cyber Speakeasy is now part of Stories and Song with Mike and Tom. So every Monday evening at 7 o'clock, you've got great conversation and great music and all sorts of creative things that are happening right here in this space. So speaking of things that are wonderful and happening right here in this space, let me pull over my guests right there. Now we've got over to my top right, we've got Taylor from Mosey Beat, and we've got Deirdre from from Basement Poems. And, I think I got that wrong again. We just had this conversation, Deirdre. Tell me what it is.
Basement poetry.
Basement poetry. Not poems, not poets. Basement poetry. 3 syllables. I'm going to remember that now. So, let's thank you both for making time to be here this evening. I'm very grateful for that. And, what's everybody drinking?
Well, I have in this lovely shot glass some honey Tennessee whiskey. Whew. And as a mild chaser, there's no alcohol in this, but this is like a watermelon juice, if you will.
Nice. Very nice. That's excellent.
And,
Taylor.
I have to show my bowl of cherries.
And you have your bowl of cherries, yes. Which is also excellent. Very nice.
I'm very jealous of the Tennessee whiskey. I didn't think to get anything like that to sip on. But I did bring out the limited, not so limited Music Fest 2019 mug. And
Very
I've
nice.
got a Cape May. It's called the Always Ready Hazy Pale Ale. I've got a lot of glare. But it's a very delicious beer. And it's made here in New Jersey, so that's kind of cool.
That is cool. Very nice. Very good. I have, one of the challenges for me is, since I don't drink, but I have a show that's all about drinking, I've got to come up with something new and interesting to have on camera every time. So this is actually, it's Hawaiian Punch and some club soda and blueberries, and it actually looks great. I'm finding if there needs to be visually, we've got the nice gradation from the red up to the white with blueberries on the top. So that part's great. It needs a little simple syrup in the club soda or something, because right now there's no sweetness, and then it's going to be all sweet. But still, it is a strong concept. It just needs a little more refinement in the execution. I should also say that it always seems like in the 3 minutes before we're supposed to go live, I'm always muddling some sort of fruit or plant product, whether it's mint leaves or blueberries. It's always the last minute and all this stuff together. So, in any case, that's my problem. That's not yours. Here, cheers to all of you and to everyone who is watching at home.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
There you go. All right. So we have. This is a really cool. Also, am I correct in assuming that Deirdre and Taylor, you two haven't met before?
No, I don't believe so.
Very cool. So that is one of my favorite things about the show, when I am able to bring together people who have maybe different perspectives, but there's a connection in terms of the creative process and the things that we do. So I'm hoping we can get some more into that this evening. But for the moment, Taylor, I'm going to put it over to. So the two of us are on the screen, then the two of us can be seen there. And actually, Taylor, if it's possible for you to either scoot just a little bit to your left, or that's good, because
like there.
You can't see this, but the way it's going out to everybody is I'm actually on half the screen and you're on the other half of the screen. So when you're right in the middle.
If I do this, are we sharing a face?
No,
Or,
that's the other way. But good thought. We'll have to.
Can I match up half and half?
You're the first person to ever suggest that, and just for that,
that's an easy one.
We may have to find a way to make that work. But first, I would love to, if you have some music ready to go, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I play in an original band called Mosey Beat, and we've got a lot of music that we've written over the years, and I think I'm going to start out with a song called Slow Easy Rise, which a really fun, quick bit about this song is that the original concept for the song was more of a like a reggae rock tune, and so I kept the chorus of the song completely. But when I rewrote the song, I put it more to a standard rock form, or if you will. Mm-hmm. But I actually came up with the hook and the lyrics at an open mic at Porter's Pub. And that was probably in 2014.
That is excellent.
There's a chance that you may have heard this song before.
There is.
But this is
2014. I'm not sure if I was hanging out there in 2014, but yeah, let's find out.
Yeah, so this is called Slow Easy Rise.
All right. Jam band that I'm in, we would usually jam here for quite some time until we find a nice space and go back to a chorus, and that would be the end of the tune. But there are no more lyrics to add to it, so I figured that's a good place to stop. If anybody's seen our shows, you would understand what I mean about the jamming. I love that, and that is the most unique ending to a song that I've ever heard anybody do. Certainly on this show, maybe ever. It should have, so there would be more that goes here if there were more people. But I think I'm just gonna stop now.
with no more lyrics to add, and I feel that having a poet on the show, it really makes me want to showcase more lyrical tune. Uh-huh. I just really like the message of those lyrics that to me they mean a lot. Yeah. So I figured that was a nice one to share.
Put everybody back up then. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I had like 3 or 4 thoughts that crossed my mind as part of that. But one of the things that I do really like about that song is you've got those licks that are sort of all throughout it. Yes. Like in some ways it's kind of a call and response, like between the vocal and the guitar. But one of the things that I think is really cool about it is that it really plays to your strength as a performer. Like, I couldn't do that, which is, and more power to you for being able to do that. And but it's sort of like, what that's so much what we do as a performer is like, okay, if this is an ability that I have, or this aspect of my playing is something that's a little unusual or has the level of something that not everybody does, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to write something that plays to that. Let's me go through that. Is that kind of a thought process that worked for you? Or just like, hey, this sounds cool, I'm just going to do it?
I think like if I were to think back to when I started writing these types of songs, because I did have a totally different style in 2006 when I started writing songs. If I think back to it, yes, there's definitely a sense of like being a student of music and life, but mostly music. It was like, how do I try and fit to a mold, but more than one mold, and then how do I take myself and kind of dump it all into a new mold,
Right.
And so those kind of things, like putting a lick in there, like, yeah, I've picked that up from a million different players, but
Sure.
at the same time, to your point, it is like, okay, I feel that this is something I can do as a musician. Let me put it in songs, let me do things, because there's a couple of songs that I have that are more straightforward strumming stuff. But more so than ever, yeah, a lot of stuff is licks intertwined within the chords, which is why with the full band too, it works really great, because we can kind of work those out as like a part,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But,
very cool.
for sure, that is what they are.
And the other thing I love that you mentioned about that, I think this is true for a lot of musicians, that part of the reason that we go to open mics, and obviously we're looking for a chance to try out material and to perform and to sort of work on that, but it also really helps with getting inspiration from other people.
Oh, 100%. I think more so than anything, like going to open mics when I was younger, like, 17, 18, whatever, just getting into that idea, that scene, it was like, oh, I want to go and practice things. And how was it I was a performer of music already because I was a drummer, but it was always like in jazz orchestra or in marching band or in, pit orchestra. So I wasn't like a showcased person. So for me to get up and like sing in front of people, and that was like a whole different thing then,
Right, yeah.
But I found throughout, I've been going, I guess for 12 years I've been going to open mics, which isn't a long time, but it's not a short time either. And what I've gathered is that I find inspiration in the players around me more so than even players I listen to that are professional musicians that I don't know.
Sure.
Sure. And I've had that conversation with a couple of my friends growing up that like we're also musicians, and one of my friends like, that sounds like a lick that Rob would play, and Rob's this guy that I knew was on my block, and we used to jam together, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that, but it kind of does, it's like you kind of take it from everywhere,
And I'm glad you mentioned that also, because I think that probably dovetails pretty neatly with Deirdre, with your experience. Certainly being part of a sort of a collective, but as well as, so you're if you're in a group of people who say, hey, we're all interested in doing poetry, we all have some thematic ideas that maybe we have in common or maybe not. How has that experience worked for you in terms of, open mics or what's been your experience with that?
Okay, well, so of course, everyone's thoughts and creative ways of expressing their feelings is always welcome, and all of that kind of helps to build the whole poetic aura or essence, of the space itself. So just being really open to receive and acknowledge and respect, and one of the primary things we try to zoom in on with as Basement Poetry, and I'm sure a lot of other poets that host poetry events, is to create a safe space for someone to openly express themselves,
right?
However that would be. So we also, in addition to us, when we have an open mic, our mic is open to not just poets, but musicians and anyone who has some type of creative expression.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to summarize like what a group of poets is, because to me that's like what a band is. We have like an open space where we can communicate musically and our thoughts, and it's not like a judgmental space. No, the three of us in my band, none of us listen to more than 3 of the same bands, you know. So when we come together with music, everybody's got their own ideas and opinions, and it's like a learning thing. Like as you meet more and more musicians, and I'm sure poets, it's like you learn to become more receptive and more open to the idea that every individual does have their own thoughts, like you said, and that's just really cool. I've never been involved in anything poetry related, so like I've never even been to a reading, to be honest. So that's kind of cool that there's like that crossover, like that arts is not so different.
Yeah.
It's the same word for different things.
Absolutely.
That's neat.
Yeah. Music is like poetry of sound without the lyrics, but it's still poetic in its flow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the way the chords complement each other and shift through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing you said, Deirdre, that stuck with me, and tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly, or if this is something to elaborate on, is that in addition to sort of being in the space of, you know, with other creative people and sharing ideas and expressing themselves, some of it is also sort of being open to the wider world, and just like as we go through life, you know, as we see something, as we experience something, as we learn about someone else's experience, you know, that kind of becomes the raw material of the artistic expression too. Did I understand that was something you're talking about?
Well, absolutely. Life experiences are going to certainly shape your interpretation and shape, you know, your experiences of how you receive how life happens, and it takes all these turns that, you know, some you could be the farthest thing from your mind as far as expecting things to go the way they are, but
witness the past year and a half.
But through our process of like adapting and adjusting and holding on to ourselves in the midst of that, we would have our own voice to express the impact of what life is doing, right? Life does what it does, and we're all a part of it. And it's great to have fellow poets and musicians, fellow artists, because we're all pretty sensitive people. We may throw out some hard shells, but we're sensitive people, and so true. You know, we can empathize with one another and feel each other's pain, because out of pain comes some of the most creative works. Right. You know, and it's just that it's a blessing to have fellow artists to be able to share that, to feel safe enough. Be, huh? Right. You know, imagine if we couldn't. Right. Yeah. Pretty bad. Probably be really bad.
We all stuck in that, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I think so much of what artists do, and I think this is true of virtually any medium, is finding ways to transmute pain into something beautiful. I mean, to me, that's so much of the artistic experiences. You know, this is this thing that I had, and then how do I, you know, where is the poetry in it? Where is the music in it? You know, how does that help me understand it better, and then maybe also help other people understand some aspect of this experience better?
I think there's a lot of that, especially when you have words to music, and I mean, even music can evoke a feeling, right? But,
sure, absolutely.
I think like even, and I don't want to go too deep on it, but even on a deeper concept, music itself can evoke many feelings. Absolutely. And I find that with our band too. Sometimes our main focus is like, let's write a tune that's going to make people want to dance, and it doesn't necessarily have to be even like meaningful lyrics or anything, but just more so make this sound wave shake people's being so that it makes them want to dance, you know? So it's really interesting. Like, definitely a lot of beautiful stuff comes out of darkness and how people can interpret it into something like that. But like on the totally flip side, it's like this like super silly way of being can also create a beautiful moment that is not necessarily coming from a dark place. You know?
You're absolutely right. And, you know, and that sometimes even really sort of simple, silly things can actually be really, really profound. I'm sorry, Deirdre, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, it's just that whole concept, right? Life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, like you make the best out of the situation. And I know, personally speaking, whenever there's something that may in someone else's eyes look like, oh my God, like, oh, you poor person. To me, it's like, okay, it's a shape, it's forming me. It's right out of hardship builds character and it builds strength. And I don't believe in coincidences in life. I really don't. So, I mean, I had a sequence of events not too long ago where all in the same day, you know, like my car broke down. I left my phone in the lift. And then I found out some really, you know, upsetting news that I had to up and fly out of town the next day. And through all of that, I never once felt like, whoa, it's me. Why is this happening to me? I never once felt that way. I just felt like, okay, I'm going to keep pressing on. But, you know, it is what it is because, one, yes, writing is definitely a great outlet instead of, you know, taking it out on someone that's around you.
Yes, or that. Take it out on yourself or take it out on other people. Either one, not ideal.
Right. Or like for me, I do karaoke every now and again, and just fun stuff. Like you said, just find fun stuff, and because you know, sulking in it or not finding some kind of artistic mode of expression can certainly leave you in a bad place. And as artists, I think we all want to uplift. Even if we're sharing something really sad, it's to say, hey, you know, maybe this is something you can identify with and you're not alone in this feeling, that this is something that we, you know, share and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, Deirdre, I think we've talked about so many wonderful avenues that there were so many different threads that you could pick up on. Are you, if you had to pick a poem right now to give to us, what would you do?
I would actually, to speak to on what we're talking about right now. Now, I did write a poem that primarily
Deirdre, give me just a moment. I'm going to switch this over so that we're going to show you in the prominent spot, and I have to take a minute.
Okay.
There we are. Okay.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So, just in keeping with what we're just talking about right now on. The fact is that we have these unique characteristics to bring to the table based on our experiences that shape us. And yet we all have our own special way of expressing it, be it visual art, music, poetry. We have a way. So if I were to pick a poem to speak to this particular conversation, what comes to mind, it's a poem that I've written a while ago, but it's something that I wrote specifically for women, although it can apply to anyone. But when you hear the lyrics, you'll see why I really targeted women. But again, it can apply to anyone, and it really kind of speaks to that. It does not rhyme. Some of my poems rhyme. This one does not. It goes like this. Define yourself. But first, ask yourself, if you are speaking the same language as the environment that surrounds you, are you being true to your inner self? Describe yourself in your own words in the midst of your daily routine of go fetching and go finding and doing all that we women do. Go fetch, go find you. Embrace yourself. Right this very moment. What do your arms tell your body as you wrap them across the front of your very self? As you place each hand on the opposite arms, your fingers, your touch, your feel, the feel of you. You. Who are you? To yourself, to others. Do not dishonor your beautiful existence by staying within the sometimes held captive to the boundaries of someone else's definition of who you are. Sometimes held captive to the boundaries of your own mind. Go ahead and define, embrace, Erase any pre-designated molds and ideals that do not fit. Feel your smile. Taste the satisfaction of being you, being true. Now, why don't you swing your arms from front to back? Go on and find your belly and begin to tap. You be careful. Don't you dare fall into any rut. I want you to love your belly and your butt. And the poem ends there. And it's really just all about loving yourself.
Yes. Let me get back up here.
Defining yourself. Stop trying to fit somebody else's mold.
Yeah.
You know, stop trying to, don't do what you think you're supposed to do. We're all unique. We all have something special and unique and signature to just us, you know, who you are. So that piece was moved so to just kind of, and a lot of stuff that I write, really, it's all about either building yourself, waking up, being conscious, accepting and loving yourself.
It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Well, another thing I really like about it is the physicality of it, right? Is that, you know, that it's easy sometimes, and I think maybe for it can be easy sometimes sort of like get into your own head, or just think of like, okay, poetry or songwriting or whatever is a sort of esoteric thing, but like no, just the physical experience of being human, and to have these parts and these weird gross bits and also these weird wonderful bits, and you know, that's us. And to celebrate that.
Yep. Indeed. That particular piece dates back, actually I wrote it way back in 2016. It was a part of a play that theater company I belong to, Basement Poetry, which we're a devised theater company. We recently received our 501c3. Yay.
Yeah, that's significant. That takes that's a big headache to get lined up. So good for you.
Yeah, we're a women-based devised theater company, and we're all about informing the community. We do talk about a lot of things that might be considered uncomfortable, you know, racism, gender identity, mental health, all of the things that need to be expressed and let folks know, hey, you know, you have a friend in us, and also to just share those experiences, because we all, if we don't have ourselves, have someone in our family, that somewhere we can identify with some of these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and certainly all these issues affect us all in society, whether we're aware of how they affect us or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we did a play back in 2016 called Her, and we premiered it right at the Bethlehem Ice House in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. But then we also were honored to be a part of the Philadelphia Fringe Festival, where we showcased that piece. Yeah, and we got some really great feedback.
That's awesome for small artist groups like yourself to get in and really show a lot of people something unique and something cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, I'm glad your feedback was positive from that.
Oh yeah, we did. We really got really nice feedback.
That's awesome.
The other thing that was cool about that particular poem is I recognized that you had adapted part of it to be included in this year's Christmas City Follies over at Touchstone. Which was also very cool.
Yes, because it's something that I think just will never get old, because I mean, you can never stop loving yourself and acknowledge that you are lovable to yourself. You know, you're lovable to yourself, which is why I asked, like, who are you? You know, how do you define yourself? Is it because of what someone else is saying who you are, or have you taken the moment to like get in touch with who you are and love who you are? All of who you are.
And with the physicality of it too, it also made me think about what Taylor just mentioned in terms of like, hey, we want to write a song that gets people dancing, which is, you know, has this sort of, I made the connection of like, you know, this also sort of speaks to the physicality of it, and that may not be a situation where like the words are specifically addressing the physicality, but we're doing something with the music that is going to influence how people move their bodies and how they're going to interact with the space. And I think as a musician, that's something also, we're training our bodies to actually do different things to be able to make these sounds out of these things in front of us. Taylor, what's your experience with sort of the physicality of being creative or interacting with art or music?
Well, I think, exactly like Deirdre, right? Okay. I think exactly like Deirdre portrayed that poem, that's showing physicality in the way that, you can do it with words. And music is no different. It is words, but it's a language that everybody can hear, but not everybody can speak, which is true with almost every spoken language.
That's true.
Right? We can all hear inflection and we can all hear tone, which is all music is. Because, for instance, like if we're up on stage and I start doing like, you kind of think like, well, he might be like, that's a little like aggressive or something. But if I start doing something like that's a little bit more light, a little bit more, light on its feet, kind of like it's going to lead somewhere that's a little bit groovier, Mm-hmm. So I think just the same way, that yelling is different than whispering, than speaking, and it's music has all those things, and it's about, I think, applying them at the correct time, because it's not that it's ever wrong to yell. It's wrong to yell if you're degrading, The same thing with music. It's not right to just, if we're in the middle of a funk tune, come out and just like there's no reason for that, But
just to shake people up, I don't know.
But on the flip side of that, being a jam band, sometimes when we're creating improv, we do things where we go from the and we'll drop down into some of this. And it kind of gives you like, it's about like finding that balance for that kind of stuff. But to learn how to make people dance, I'm still learning, but seeing people dance to your stuff is like when you start to go, that's cool. Like that person moved because we did this. And it's never an exact formula. There's always something in the air between, your energies that you're putting out and the energies that the crowd is putting out, that the people that everybody is kind of interspersing in. And we notice that, and I keep going back to being an improv band, or it's that we notice that we play with the energy of a room, and we really can decide within a moment what does this room need right now, and it's not that we've mastered it, but that we've seen it enough that we're going, okay, let's try this direction.
So you could be receptive to it because you have a degree of experience with it. Yeah. And it's the empathy thing, like being an empathetic person. Like how often do you know when a friend is hurt, even though they're saying they're not hurt? You always know, because of the way that they're giving their vibe, the way that they're portraying their speech, and people do it with body language. And like that's one of like the big things. I did some acting in college and stuff, and realized that body language is a lot of your personality, and we all forget every day, but there's definitely times when you're more aware of it, and those times are a lot of times at between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. when you've got a couple drinks in you and you're at the bar, and you're more aware of like, I'm showing I'm having a good time, or I'm showing I'm not having a good time, Right.
So it's kind of interesting that, it really and I know I think I stayed on the path of the question a little bit, but to say that, the idea that we're trying to find the physicality of music is that it's reading the room, reading the people individually. Sometimes we tune in on just like if there's like a group of people that are having a good time. It's those people's energies that we try and tune in on, that we can then hopefully kind of intersperse into everybody else then. You know, I don't want to focus on the guy who's frowning at me because he doesn't like the fact that I'm playing an electric guitar, you know, or something like that, you know, or maybe that he doesn't like the fact that his dog didn't want to go for a walk with him today or something. I don't know.
Nothing to do with you. Well, I think that is, you know, so much a part of any kind of performance art. Whether it's theater, whether it's musician being up in front, whether it's, you know, it's performing a poem, that there's this element of dialogue with the audience. And it's not just, you know, it's not all about me. It's all about what are we going to create together? You know, you receiving and me producing, and you know, how do we feed off of each other? Deirdre, what's been your experience with that in, you know, at something like Fringe or something that's much smaller?
Well, it's an energy thing. So the group size doesn't really matter too much. It's the level of free-flowing energy that we kind of groove on. And while what Taylor was saying and what you guys were talking about music, I was like scrambling looking for this poem, not by myself, but it's by Ntozake Shange. And she writes this poem. I couldn't find it, but from what I can remember of it, she says, I live in music. Is this where you live? I live here in music. My friends live on C Flat Street, something like that. And I got sound. She goes, sound falls around me like rain falls on other folks. Saxophones wet my face. You know, I got 15 trumpets where other women got hips and an upright bass for both sides of my heart. You know, and she goes on. It's just a great piece. And so just listening to you guys talking about that would, you know, kind of took me there. And to speak to Taylor, like, you know, as a kid, for me, growing up, I felt like my life was one big soundtrack, and it was always my original music.
Absolutely.
Always heard music.
It plays in the head, right? And it just, the record comes off sometimes, and then it's right back on when you didn't know it. And it's just right there. Yeah. Yes,
literally. And I grew up in, you know, in my house, it was mandatory for us to study the piano. And so my dad was very strict about reading music. So he couldn't, if he walked by the piano and you were looking at the keys, that's a problem. You got to hear this for like a really long time. So, but because I would hear this music in my mind, I think I'm going to go home, I'm going to play it, see what the notes are, then I'll write the notes, you know. But I didn't get to do that because he saw me not, you know, looking at the keys. And but yeah, it's just being open to all of the creative energy. So as poets, we thrive on other poets' energy, you know. The more you want to open that door to what's inside, the more we all feel, like the more vulnerable you make yourself, the more we all, you know, it creates a really strong, safe bond. And it does, it kind of becomes, our fellow poets and artists just become this big family, you know.
Absolutely.
No barriers, because music and art is the bloodline, you know. That is the energy flow, and that is what keeps us going.
It's almost like it's like there's a lazy river of art, and you step in, and hopefully your friends follow along, and then you're bumping into each other in that lazy river of art, finding that your grooves are helping each other keep moving, you know, keep moving along. Right. I find that a lot with musicians, you know. It's like you get really inspired because somebody like learned something, you know, and it's like, oh, now like that's super cool. Like I want to see, you know, what else can I learn because that person learned that? Like, what can I take from their experience that makes me want to be a better player, you know? And like, and not in a competitive sort of way, like, you know, I think that was one thing that I noticed in music school. There was a lot of competition, and I'm, you know, not that I'm not a competitive person. I grew up with 4 brothers, but it's, you know, I'm the kind of person that wants to see everyone thrive. And as much as that can be a crutch at times, because I'm like, oh, like, you know, maybe I'm holding myself back from creating my best because I'm trying to help somebody else thrive. I found a balance between being able to hold yourself back to help others grow and also find who you can grow from, you know, not just hold yourself back to the extent, you know. But I feel very fortunate with music because I as well started very young. In my house, it was drums though. So my stepdad was a drummer, and it was, hey, you want to play the drums? You got to learn how to read the music, and then you can groove, you know. So I learned how to read rudiments and drum rhythms, and I played it all the way through college. But ultimately, it came down to feeling music for me, and I picked up the guitar at like 13 and was learning that all the way through college too, and decided that was the path, you know, was keep the drums on the back burner, but, you know, understand, you know, that there's everybody around you to learn from, and that, you know, since my friend was playing guitar, I wanted to be around him because he played guitar, and I wanted to learn from him, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So it's like that kind of stuff. It is really such a community. It's an amazing and beautiful thing when you really think about how deep it goes, you know.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
not just, oh, you're a guitar player because you wear a Fender hat. You know?
Some of it too, though, is I mean, one of the best experiences that I, you know, have on any sort of basis is, you know, and actually I suspect both of you have had this experience before, that, you know, that like you go to see somebody perform and you're like, wow, that makes me want to go home and pick up my guitar. That makes me want to go home and work on something, because that's what inspires me to do. Like, yes, seeing it. Another thing that it does is it also opens up the possibilities, because sometimes you know, you see someone do something, and it's like, oh, I didn't even realize you could do that. Now that I know that something like that is possible, here's how I would apply that, or, you know, here's how it sparks some sort of interest or creativity in me.
I absolutely agree with that statement. 100%.
One of my and when you talk about, you know, how it ends up being collaborative rather than competitive, there was, I think this was a video I saw of Stevie Ray Vaughan and Albert King. I think that's who it was. I know it was Stevie Ray, and I think it was Albert King. So two blues guitar players, but also, you know, very different in terms of their style. Certainly different in terms of the background.
The monsters on two different roads.
Exactly. Exactly. And what was so fascinating was seeing them in the same space. That, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan is looking at the other guy like, wow, he's really good. I need to up my game. And meanwhile, Albert King is looking to see, wow, he's really good. I need to up my game, right? And so then they both keep rising because they keep trying to rise to meet each other, not in the sense of like, oh, I need to prove I'm better than him, but like, wow, I aspire to his level. But they're both feeling that way about each other. And it is
and I
so
think
cool.
that goes totally back to like Deirdre's thing, where she was talking about how, you know, when you have a poet who's like being more open, she wants to be more open, and it's like it's that exact same energy. And like that's why I love like jamming with people. Like, you know, especially when I was younger, I would jam with people at the house a lot, you know, like, oh, come over and jam. But now when I get to invite my musician friends out on stage and we get to kind of do the thing there, I get that vibe, because it's like you're pushing me to be better. And that's what I find with my bandmates too, though. Like, it's a power trio, so bass, drums, guitar, but we try and push each other in a non-competitive way, in a non-aggressive way to be better. You know, let's make this energy more, you know. I love that about performing. I mean, it is the rush, you know.
Deirdre, how does that end up working with you in terms of playing off of emotions, ideas, turns of phrase from other creative folks, so that when you interact with them?
Well, kind of just almost ditto what Taylor just said, because when an artist, you know, like for me, it's everyone has their way of expressing. Everyone has their rhythm. Everyone has their mode. Some folks are a little bit more melodious. Some folks are more like rhythmic, like drums and all of those kind of things. So seeing all these different ways that folks do express themselves all serves as an inspiration, not to want to do it like them, but just kind of opens a good can of stuff. Opens, you know, like, wow, okay, well, you know, all right. It might be something that I had thought about expressing a certain way, but had my own little, you know, maybe not. But then when you hear someone go way out with it. It's like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah.
So they can serve as an inspiration. I honestly just like folks that are gut honest with whatever they're writing, or they could be absolutely hysterical. I mean, they could be writing a comedic piece, but just genuine to whatever it is. Like really, you know that this came from them. You know, versus you getting a homework assignment in grade school or high school where the assignment is you have to create. You know, you have to create a poem, and
Here's
then you
your
just
boundaries.
right,
Make
and
the
then,
poem.
right, and then
I was
you're like,
never good
okay,
at
what
this.
rhymes with this? Right. But speaking of grade school, I have to make an honorable mention to actually a fourth grade teacher who was very instrumental in me being comfortable speaking in public and all of that stuff. Because she would give us the class a poem. You pick your poem, and you had to memorize it, and then you'd have to stand in the front of the class on Friday and recite it to the class, which was real nerve-wracking, but it certainly broke the ice. You know.
Yeah.
I didn't actually start doing stage plays until college. I was invited to do it in high school, but I was still a little too shy for that. I thought, oh no, they're not throwing tomatoes at me, you know?
And then you realize not everybody grows tomatoes.
Right.
If
But
you're in
so
Philly,
I
they
got
might
to,
throw batteries. You know, you got to be careful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But yeah, random things will inspire me to write. I don't know how we're doing on time, but
we're fine,
there's a piece that literally I was inspired by a billboard sign. I was driving down Route 309 and there was a billboard sign. And I wrote a whole poem based on the words on this billboard sign.
You have it ready to go?
Billboard sign. I have it ready to go.
Awesome.
And it's
Let's
a piece that, okay, it doesn't rhyme again, but I'll give you something that rhymes maybe eventually.
Okay.
But it's okay. So anyway, here it goes. Where did you?
Sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
I needed to get the camera on you correctly. Now it is. I'll stay out of your way now.
Okay. Where did you come from? I came from love. A magnanimous love, a love so powerful that it made me. And I carry this love with me and through me in everything that I do. Through my journey, through life's hardships, there's still love. And when I die, when my body dies, I will return to from whence I came. I return to love. I return to love and blend in with other lives that have come from love, and we love and we love and we're omnipresent. Until the next one life comes from love, maybe get a piece of love we are, maybe not. I saw a sign while driving down the highway that said, when you die, you will meet God. God is love, period. Love is unconditional. Now, often it is presented to us that before we meet God or when we meet God, we need to look back to see if we have been true to that which has created us. Have we carried love? Does love exude? Now, maybe if we've gone our entire life going against love, doing everything in our power to fight love, maybe then we should be concerned about having to return to from whence we came. Say we've gone our entire life practicing the opposite of love, hate, and have to return to from whence we came, which is love. We're not going to fit. We are not going to blend. We are not going to be welcomed. Now, I don't know what that means to not be welcomed. What hell is? Does it mean you're a lost, wandering soul hoping to find solace in other lost souls? I don't know. All I know is me. I came from love, and from love is where I return. And that's it.
That's awesome.
That really is.
And that's
That really
it.
is. Yeah. Man.
And it really was. That's what the sign said.
Right,
You know,
right.
when you die, you meet God. And I'm like driving, and all of a sudden I just picked up my microphone, and those were the words that came out of my mind.
I may have seen
Nice.
the same billboard or one very much like it out on, I think, 78 or
Right.
81.
Down by Quakertown?
Yeah, down by Quakertown,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. Heading southbound. But yeah, so sometimes the smallest thing, and then sometimes there's more major, it breaks my heart. There's so many heartbreaking things that happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of heartbreaking things to happen.
Yeah.
But so, and because I think as in art, as this particular sensitive artist, sometimes it takes a while before I'll put something together to pay tribute to some of us that are gone too soon, due to nothing that they did other than be Black in America. I for some reason I'm feeling compelled to share, and this is an old story actually. I think it was in 2015, where a young man who was on a college scholarship down in Texas, and we don't know if he was high or mentally ill. We really don't know. We'll never know. But this incident happened a few months after the guy in Colorado thought he was the Joker from Batman and took out all those lives in the theater and rigged his place for the police. And he was classified as mentally ill. Well, this young 19-year-old college student, he went into a used car parking lot after hours and was jumping on the cars. Again, we don't know, was he mentally ill or high, but someone called the police and they shot him dead. And when I heard this story, now there's differences, of course, in the pigmentation of the mentally ill who killed 14 people and rigged his place for the police, and this young Black man who was a college student who at most it was property damage. He took no one's life, but he lost his own life. And this piece is published. It's called In Memory. His name is Christian Taylor. And it's called In Memory of Christian Taylor. And I don't know why I feel so compelled to share it. I mean, there's a million Christian Taylors out there. The stories are horrible. Yeah. But this particular one goes, needing help, yet not trusting. Able to identify my needs. Their numbers, I never chose to feed. I become withdrawn and without. They've labeled me unstable, yet their schools just fed me lies. Instead of a nurturing guidance, another number now coincides. My color seems to threaten ignorant minds that cannot see beautiful me. Some early intervention could have helped, I do not doubt. Yet not one single determination ever helped this brother out. Societal keys were never granted for me to be free. Only suffer I the unjust equalities, just for being me. Most recent, the abruption of my life you did so take, and my retroed labeled classifications save nothing but a bitter taste. And those who share my life, my gifts, the talented ones that are in reverse labeled sick. No, it just strengthened empathetic and revolutionary ties that keep bound and bonded thick. So though you've called my number, adding another statistic to your wrongs, peace be still is my mantra. Peace be still is still my song. If early intervention is found in the latest pill, I refrain, yet dance reverently to my song, Peace Be Still. Car jumping and establishment drive-through, in this case, sealed your spectacle lenses tight. hindering your color-coded vision that saw not sickness, only another reason to engage in an unjust fight. Instead, I took your bullets and more of your selfish, reactionary distrust, though I needed help. But from whom? Your establishment I cannot trust. My common cause to grow, to bloom, to live is never broken. Though you think you have killed me, each time you see, you've cleared the view, magnified visibility for us all to see that until the masks are removed with their color-coded screens, delusional perceptions of privilege and power, until diminished, there will never be unity. But I and my people remain free to walk, skip, and fly to my melody. Peace, be still. Peace, be free.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow,
That's a heavy
that's
one.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deirdre.
And
Those
I mean,
words, they carry. The words carry, you know? That's like beautiful and dark. It all comes to that, you know,
Yeah.
where we talked about before, all that pain that you can make something beautiful out of, because the words are touching and amazing. And I did honestly feel this like wave come through at some point that was like, wow, you know, it's a very I don't want to use the word unsettling because that's not the correct word, but a very awakening feeling, you know.
yeah. And you know, not to bring a dark cloud, but just to say that as a poet and as a basement poet, we try really well, you know, we try to keep it raw and keep it honest. And sure, I got crazy, silly poems too, love poems, and, you know, poems that you only want to tell like when it's adults only kind of poems.
I use my earmuffs.
But you know, I just felt compelled to give honor to Christian, because there's so many of Christians around, and it's just and that too is being using this gift of putting words together and sharing, just like for you, Taylor, the gift you have of making something happen with that music, you know, because music is that universal language that can sear through the heart of someone, that you could talk to them until they're blue in the face. But that music will speak to their soul, and it will force them to, you know, become a part of, even as much as they want not to, you know.
Because not everybody can decipher words as easily as they can feel music. You know, some of us definitely feel words a lot, which, you know, I know that I'm one of them. You know, being a lyricist myself, I feel words a lot. But yeah, for sure, music has that. You know, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll share a song that, and just a quick backstory while we're in this kind of realm of things. It's a song that I wrote it's called Lift Our Eyes. And the idea behind the song is that it's a song to show that there's something more than the darkness that we all feel, because the lyrics are from a third person type of view, talking about another person, you know, and kind of the person is not a real person, but more so an idea and a concept of what somebody might be
Taylor,
like.
give me just a moment so I can switch this over so we can put you in the middle here instead of Deirdre's smiling face. There we are. All right, there you are.
So it's called Lift Our Eyes, and like I said, the lyrics are they've got a story to tell that I think we all have related to at some point, either heard of or had happen in our own lives, where somebody is thinking about the wrong way with their lives, you know. So. time he's had to think. He doesn't know what he has seen. Living in disbelief, mind always at the brink. Thoughts lose hope, things that bring you down. Nothing here at all. Why do these screens move every move? We got a world outside. If we could just wave our eyes to see it in time. These thoughts they will leave, and on the left wouldn't be the land and the sea. On by those faces that glance, it doesn't seem to notice. Maybe he's too focused. Late at night he goes into a trance, tries to forget his mind. If he can, it's loaded. Thoughts lose hope, things that bring you down. Nothing here at all. And why do these screens rule every mood? We got a world outside. If we could just lift our eyes to see it in time. These thoughts they will leave, and all that's left would be the land and the sea. Best foot forward as he steps out the door. Takes a look around and he finally sees it. Living life never should be a chore. It's a right that you get, so you get that for free. And thoughts will bring hope, things that lift you up. There's something here again. And why do these screens rule every mood? We got a world outside. If we could just lift our eyes to see it in time. These thoughts they will leave, and all left wouldn't be the land and the sea. I said, why do these screens rule every mood? We got a world outside, but we just lift our eyes to see it in time. These thoughts they will leave, and all left wouldn't be the land and the sea. So it's a song that's definitely about, you know, the idea that we get so absorbed in like what's bothering us and what's bringing us down in the culture that we live in now, which is very media based. You're supposed to show a smile everywhere, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's like the first two verses are about how you can kind of get lost in your own head and your own brain and forget that there's a million people around you that are maybe feeling the same way, that you can lift each other up. And the third verse is finally coming to that realization that, you know, that, hey, we're all here and we can enjoy this life, you know, as much as we can, you know. And there's obviously always factors to it that dictate how much, you know, a person can enjoy, you know.
Thanks for sharing that. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much to both of you for making the time. This was really, really cool.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Before we clear the space, because I know that there are other fun things coming up here in Rockland Valley, but I want to make sure people have a chance to learn more about the things to do. So Taylor, let's start with you. What's the website, the gigs you got coming up, that sort of thing?
Sure. So it's moseybeat.com, and that's MOSEYBEAT.
BEAT.
And
not the root vegetable.
Yes.
Like the drum. Okay. Yes.
Yes, like the drum. Yeah. And we've got stuff coming up all over the Lehigh Valley, and couple gigs out in Pittsburgh and a couple gigs up in Vermont, and we've got a Music Fest gig again this year.
Nice.
Which is Friday, August 13th. Yeah, so we started, before the pandemic, started traveling with the music, and it stopped abruptly with the pandemic. And now we're getting back to that after we're all vaccinated to the point where we can travel now. So we're like, okay, cool, things are opening up. We feel good. let's do it.
Good deal.
You know, so and then that's what we've got going on.
Yeah. And Deirdre, how can people learn more
Okay,
about
good
basement
stuff.
poetry?
Yeah, sure. So you can look us up on Facebook. You're going to find us under Basement Poetry. On also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Basement Poems. There apparently is another group called Basement Poetry. That's a band that's from Europe or something. And so they have. So if you're even just Googling Basement Poetry and you put Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, you will get us. And so Instagram, Twitter, it's at Basement Poems. Or Basement Poetry on Facebook. Or you can just Google us and see all the wonderful things we'll be doing and have done in the past. And thank you so much for sharing this time, and it's been great.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful
There
meeting
should
you.
be links down in the description that point to all of those. And after the show, both of you are welcome to check those out and make sure you didn't screw anything up and put those there. But yeah, definitely check out Mosey Beat and check out Basement Poetry. Thank you so much, Taylor and Deirdre, for being part of this. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
All right, and so that will do it for our show today. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Again, like I say, check out Rock in the Valleys, because Rock in the Valley's got stuff going on here all the time, including more shows coming up here tonight. So make sure you're following it on the socials and checking out the Rock in the Valley website. And here in this spot, in the 7 to 8 o'clock, every week, Stories in the Song with Mike and Tom. Coming up next week, it is going to be one of Tom's, a revisiting of one of Tom's favorite episodes from that came out recently. So check out that, and check out for we're gonna have a previous episode of the Cyber Speakeasy the Monday after that. So every Monday at 7 o'clock. Rock in the Valley, check out Stories and Song with Mike and Tom. And until then, my name is Mike. I am Not For Coltrane. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you next time.